Welcome, everybody, to Cinema Royale. I am Travis Hobson of PunchDrunkCritics.com. And as usual, as you can see behind me, there's Florence Pugh, there's Harry Styles. We're talking about Don't Worry, Darling. This is Olivia Wilde's new film that's had absolutely no controversy at all surrounding it, none whatsoever. Nobody said a thing about it. I don't think anybody knows it's coming out. Nothing's happening with it. There's no people in it. There's been no spit. There's been nothing. Everything's great.
It's so
Uh,
weird they didn't even go to festivals with it or anything.
I know. That voice you hear and that pretty face you see is Karen Peterson, my good friend. How you doing, Karen?
I'm great. How are you?
Good, except I got a cat who's crinkling every piece of paper in the house behind me.
He's
Jesus.
like, "Oh, it must be quiet time. I'm going to be as loud as
And
possible."
I turned around, he stopped and looked at me like, "What's up?" Uh, so don't worry, darling. Most people probably have an idea. The premise is very Stepford Cuckoo's esque, at least on the surface. It's kind of set in a 1950s idyllic neighborhood called Victory. Florence Pugh plays Alice. Harry Styles is Jack, a married couple. He wears the pants in the family, goes off to work every day at a very suspicious, mysterious place out in the desert in a mountain. And she stays home and cooks and cleans and basically walks around in an oversized shirt, which I didn't mind. And that's it. And until she discovers that something fishy is going on in Victory. One of the women, played by Kiki Lane, goes a little crazy, starts asking questions, and soon she's gone. Something is happening in Victory, and she's going to figure it out. I really wanted to have you on here to talk about this, Karen, because I don't know your opinion of it. I know almost everybody else's opinion. I've tried to avoid yours, which I don't even know if you've tweeted anything about it or not. But I wanted to
I
get
have
your opinion
not tweeted
of
about
it
it.
because I figured you might have some thoughts. So, what are you thinking about? Don't worry, darling.
I definitely do have some thoughts. And what's so weird is it's my thoughts are very favorable, and I feel like I'm so outside of what so many of our colleagues think
It's
of
gotten
this
trashed a
film.
little bit. I mean, I would say the reaction is mixed, and I would say my
Yeah.
reaction to it is mostly positive, not entirely. But go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I think from a filmmaking standpoint, I mean, there are some things that the screenplay could do a little bit better and differently, but other than that, like I think from just the film itself, I think this is really beautiful. All the craftsmanship that goes into it. It's they filmed it out in Palm Springs. It's got that very like mid-century Palm Springs look to it, the
Yeah.
costumes. Yeah, she does wear an oversized shirt at one point, but she's got the most beautiful wardrobe, and so does everyone around her.
Yes.
Yeah, just like a fun cast of characters. I wasn't sure why Harry Styles' accent suddenly changed partway through the movie. But other than that, I mean, there's just little things. But I just really enjoyed the experience of watching this. And and I knew already going into it that a lot of people didn't love it. Um, I
Yeah.
was but it was also frustrating when I was watching it because it was like there were things where I was like, that was really funny and no one's reacting. And I was just like, oh, I am having a much different experience with this movie than anybody else is. So yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting being sitting through this one because I think a lot of the critics around me came into it prejudged a little bit. It was
Yeah.
impossible to avoid word of mouth about the movie, which is interesting for a movie that I honestly don't think a lot of people are going to go end up going to see anyway. I think it's
Yeah.
going to get because it's clearly not going to be an awards movie the way it was originally. I think people thought it was going to be. It's not going to be that. And I think that is kind of hurt reaction to it, and I think it's going to probably keep some people away from it ultimately.
I think
Um,
One Direction kids are gonna, turn
mm,
out for Harry. I definitely have some of my friends, older kids that are, teenagers and young adults are definitely in the camp of I want to go see Harry's movie.
right.
So I think that's where it's gonna get the most traffic.
That's
Not from just general audience
this
people.
would be a good test for Florence Pugh as a star on her own too, like to see if she's like a box office star. Like we all love her, but is she bankable? Like this would be a pretty
Right.
good test for that. But ultimately, look, I enjoyed the film as well. I agree with you that the craft of it is really good. I love the 1950s setting. It's very polished looking. I love that aspect of it. I kind of love deconstruction of that period anyway. I mean, we've seen a lot of movies that do that, and this is amongst many other things. It is somewhat of a deconstruction of that period that we all looked at as idyllic, and really, it really wasn't. Um, but I think overall, my biggest problem with it is I feel like the payoff sucked.
Hmm.
I didn't like the payoff very much. I don't. I thought that with all that build up, and there's a lot of themes it addresses, gaslighting, patriarchy, all the sort of stuff that it touches on. And the payoff to me, which is feels separate. It feels like it's saying something else or doing something else. And it just did not work for me ultimately. And I wanted it to because I really was enjoying myself up to that point. And then I was like, oh, okay. It felt like the buildup did not meet the payoff, and that kind of sucked.
Hmm. That's interesting because for me, I felt like it did. I didn't have a problem with the payoff. Where I wish that it had um, maybe gone a little further is just introducing things and explaining some specific things a little bit more so that we fully understood what it is that we're dealing with when we understand, like when we learn what's really happening. It's so tricky to talk about this in
Oh
particular
yeah, it's
without
definitely one you don't want
spoilers.
to spoil. Yeah.
Yeah, oh, for sure. But I think that once you understand, okay, this is what we've been building toward this whole time, I think that that reveal made total sense to me and I was on board with it. Where I where I felt like it was lacking was I still had more questions that could not be answered by just drawing some conclusions from what we get in the movie. It's more of just like, well, but what about this and what about that person and how does this work and why would any of this happen in the first place? So,
I see that's the problem. See, I think this needed a twist that was more grounded. So maybe you wouldn't have to ask those questions. Like I feel like there was I was like, okay, and I kind of agree with you. I feel like this is one of those things that if you peel it back a little bit, you'll be nitpicking it apart, you know? And I
yeah.
don't want to have to do that, but I feel like that's what would happen if you like really start thinking about what was going on and some of the people that are there and some of their motivations. You'd be like, yeah, I'm not so sure.
I feel like there's one specific question that if they had answered that, it
Mm,
would have made everything feel fine. Like even still having a lot of other unanswered questions, at least this would have been like, okay, I get it.
right,
And then we could go on with our
right.
lives. Without getting too much into that, that is the motivation or the background, I guess, of the character Frank, played by Chris Pine.
Yeah, Chris Pine, who look, I'm sorry,
The best Chris.
ugh, I
He's the
know,
best Chris.
I know you like him. And I've liked him in a couple of things too, but this movie made
He's
me
been the
fall
best
back
Chris.
on my.
No, he's been the best Chris since Princess Diaries 2.
Oh my God! Since Jesus, so it makes
True
me
love
fall back
lasts
on my
forever.
original opinion that he lacks charisma. I was just like, oh my God. I was like, yeah, I'm sorry. He just,
Lacks
I
charisma.
oh God, he's so bland to me. He's so
What?
bland to me. I know. Other people love him. I couldn't get into him in a role that demands he be charismatic because
Oh,
he's like
I think
the
that,
leader of victory.
but I think that it's so yeah, let's talk about that because I think the fact that he is not um how do I say this without going too far
Yeah.
the wrong direction? For just for sake of kind of helping us understand what we're talking about. Like he's not a cult leader, but there's that tendency, that vibe.
Yes.
And so I think about like the character that Chris Hemsworth played in Bad Times at the El Royale, where he's this very obvious cult leader who um like super charismatic, like you want to follow this guy but you
Oh
know
yeah,
you shouldn't.
yeah,
Like nothing
yeah,
good is going to come from following this guy, but you
yeah.
just can't help yourself. Whereas the character that Chris Pine is playing, there's a similar idea to that character, but it's a very different role that he's inhabiting, and he has to be someone that you feel good following. Like there's a scene that's in the trailer where he's just like, what are we doing? We're changing the world, we're saving the world, whatever.
Yeah.
And so he has to be someone that you don't have to buy the, like, he's someone I would not necessarily want to follow and listen to, but I have to believe that the people in this community would. And I felt like he accomplished that.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I get what you're saying, and I think that he doesn't. Uh, like I was like, would you really do all this for him? I'm not so sure about that. I can
But
understand
when you
why.
understand who they are and what it is that they're doing, I think that that helps make that more, I don't know.
Yeah, no, yeah, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. It's not the motivation isn't the same as what a cult leader might want,
Right, right,
right?
yeah,
Like he's not wanting the same things that a cult leader would want. So he's
exactly.
not trying to do that. I get that, but his ultimate goal still is to keep these guys in line, to keep everybody in line, and basically to follow him and what he says.
Mhm.
So he may not be quite as devious, I guess, or something as a cult leader might be. But
Yeah.
he still demands your attention. And I was just kind of like, he ain't commanding the room for me.
Mm.
That's all. And that could be just my implicit bias. Like I see Chris Pine and I'm just automatically like, you know?
Yeah, that
That
doesn't
could just
help
be
if you
me.
already feel that way about
Right.
him.
It could be me. Like if I was in victory, I'd probably be like, yeah, but why are we listening to him? And I'd probably get disconnected or something or
You
whatever, and I'd
wouldn't
be kicked out or something
you wouldn't
or
end up in
killed.
victory in the first place if you didn't want to listen to him.
Yeah, probably that's probably true. That's probably true. I was actually surprised that there were persons of color in there at all, if I'm honest, because it doesn't seem like there would be at first. You're kind of looking at it and you're like, you're thinking of the time period and you're like, would they have
It's a
any?
fairly
It
multicultural
is.
community.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it really is. You got Kiki Lane in there playing one character. You got Gemma Chan in there as well.
Mhm.
So yeah, it is more multicultural than you would expect from a place like that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, even like when she goes to the ballet class and stuff, like that room, you've got actresses of all races represented in that small group as well. Like this is a surprise. Yeah, I agree with you. It's surprising, but it is a diverse
yeah.
community.
What
So,
did you think of? I thought Florence Pugh was terrific in this.
oh yeah.
She has
Yeah.
it's a really complicated role because her character surprisingly complicated for a thriller like this. But she's got to kind of balance something with Alice because she wants the truth, but there's still that kind of yearning for the perfection,
Hmm.
and that's
Yeah.
kind of a hard thing to teeter on throughout the movie. I thought she was great.
She's great and just gets better as it goes. And her role, I agree with you, it is complicated. She starts off as someone who just is happy with her lot in life. Her life
Yeah.
feels perfect, everything's great. And then as soon as there's just a tiny little crack in the facade, then she starts to need to know more, but she's still fighting with herself of like, but things are fine, but they're not, but they are, and the way she balances that is really, really good.
What about Harry Styles? What you think about him, other than his accent?
I
I
think,
agree with you on it. I noticed too.
yeah, it's weird. And then I love at some point where like someone specifically says that his the nationality he identifies with is British, which I thought was weird. I'm like, is he choosing to be British then? Is that what we're getting? But um which was kind of funny. But I thought actually for the character that he's playing, which is a very bland guy, um I thought he did fine. I didn't think that there was a lot to him, so there wasn't a lot required of him.
Yeah,
So,
I thought he was good in the scenes that he shared with her,
mhm.
because he has a little bit of a tug of war going on inside him too at a certain point. And I
Yes.
thought he was very good at expressing that. But yeah, overall he doesn't get a whole lot to do, but he gets more than the rest of the cast who really don't have a whole lot to do either.
He gets
If,
more screen time,
yeah,
definitely. Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, he does get a little bit more of a emotional arc, I guess, too.
yeah. Olivia Wilde writes a nice role for one, didn't write it, but Katie Silverman
Yeah.
did. But she gets a nice little role for herself as well in this too. So
Hmm.
yeah,
And I personally thought she was perfect in the role that she plays.
yeah, me
So
too.
I know originally there was talk that she was supposed to be Alice, which I think would have been horrible. But I think,
Yeah,
yeah,
maybe
she would have been
10 years ago.
maybe.
I think you needed
I mean,
Alice to be
part
a
of
little
it
bit
is,
younger.
yeah, part of it is that she's too old for the role, but also I think that she is I don't know even how to put my finger on what it is, but I
I,
think there's just not like
I
she's someone who understands the world.
I
Like
think
there's
there's
not a
an idea
naivety to her.
of life experience that
Mhm.
has to come through with the character,
Yeah.
right? And I
Yeah.
think that's the thing. Like she's been through some stuff, and
Mhm.
now she's in this perfect place, but she
Yeah.
knows what life is like, what is
Right.
really like outside of victory. You know,
Mhm.
I think you
Yeah.
need that, and I think she expresses that better than Florence Pugh
Yeah,
probably.
and she just Olivia Wilde, because of her own life, just looks like someone who has experienced the world, whereas Florence Pugh is still young. I mean, she obviously has been through things too, but she still has that like youth, and that's not even just an age thing, but just she just is still a young person who um is sort of that fresh-faced, like just, figuring stuff out, I guess.
We'll see what she's like when she's starred in 10 years of really crappy movies, 5 of them a year, like Olivia Wilde did for a while.
Well, if she starts making crappy movies, then we'll
I know
see.
that's true. She hasn't really done that yet, so she hasn't gone to the paper. Olivia
I mean,
Wilde,
I have not loved every movie Florence Pugh has been in, but none of them have been overtly horrible, and definitely not because of her.
yeah, Olivia Wilde went through a run of about 4 or 5 years where she was in about 5 or 6 movies a year, and a lot of them were trash.
Well, I think
And
she was
she's
doing
talked
what a
about that
lot
too,
of,
though. She's talked about
yeah,
that too.
she
So
was doing what a lot of actors and actresses do when they're just really trying to build their portfolio, which is basically say yes to pretty much everything.
yeah, I remember Deadfall.
And
That wasn't good. But
but
anyway,
now she's directing,
and now she's
and
directing.
you know what? This is the thing. I know there's a lot of talk about what was going on behind the scenes and a lot of rumors and things about, whatever happened there. But
Yeah,
between Booksmart and now Don't Worry, Darling, I think what's clear is that she has a really good eye and she actually
yeah,
is a good director.
yeah. I think she's a really good filmmaker with a bright future.
Hmm.
This is more ambitious than Booksmart was, and I think even though it's not perfect, she shows she's got skill behind the
Yeah,
camera, and I want to see
definitely.
what she does for her next thing. I can't. I think it's probably been announced. I just don't remember.
I don't know.
Yeah,
But it is interesting though to watch the way people have talked about her and her movies versus the way they would talk about any male director that has questionable things happening on set. It is so different.
yeah,
Like when it's a filmmaker like, David O. Russell. Lots of people are talking now about him. I wish the real story of everything that he's done would finally come out because that guy's got
yeah,
but nobody's talking about that. They're focusing on the movie. They're talking about the people that are in the movie. They're not putting their attention on David O. Russell. Whereas with her, it's like, oh, Olivia Wilde, there's all this salaciousness, and it's going to, I mean, like you said, it really it affects the perception going into the movie. And it shouldn't. That's not fair. That has nothing to do with the final product.
yeah. No, I agree. She's not helped by the fact that the people involved are huge stars with complicated pasts already.
Mhm.
Shia LaBeouf, I mean, he's a newsmaker on his own.
Yeah. Hmm.
And Harry Styles is one of the biggest stars in the world. All that stuff does not help, and it's unfortunate that it's going to detract from the movie for a lot of people and
Yeah.
keep people away. I think that's sad because it's clear that Olivia Wilde put a lot of work into it.
Hmm.
So I hope it doesn't hurt it too much and that people still go and check it out. Um, but I'm skeptical, honestly. I'm skeptical about that.
We'll
Anyway,
see.
yeah, we'll
I
see.
mean, it's tracking for a decent opening, but
What else is out this week?
What
I
else?
mean,
New this weekend. Well, there you've got the Avatar remastered
I
version.
was actually thinking about going to see that tomorrow.
I saw it the other day at a screening.
Ah, I was.
The years have not been kind to the story, which was never good, but is somehow seems even worse 13 years later. But the point of Avatar was never the story, it was about the visuals, and those still look incredible.
Yeah.
And the remastered, like there's a few scenes where he switched over to like the HDR and you
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
it, you can really see the difference. And it's a little jarring, and if they had done that with the whole movie, it would have been too much. But I think the way that they insert it, it's like, yeah, okay. And he really has done a great job with the way the 3D effect is, because I was sitting off to the side, I was not directly in the middle, and there was no distortion.
Oh wow.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, I'm interested to go and see it this weekend. I don't think I've seen it since 2009 or 10, if I'm
Yeah, I
honest. So.
hadn't either. I went because I knew, like, well, I'm gonna have to see this because there's a sequel coming.
Yeah,
But
you gotta see it again at some point. I may have to watch it. I can either watch it in the big screen or I can watch it at home. That sounds terrible. I don't want to watch it at home.
the point of Avatar is to see it on as big a screen as you can and to
Yeah,
watch it in 3D. And yeah,
yeah. I can't imagine sitting there at a TV screen watching that movie and being like, really?
yeah.
I think that's
But
how.
anyway, so that's what's out this weekend up against Don't Worry, Darling.
Yeah, I was about
But
to say,
also, The Woman King is still out.
Woman King is still out, man. It's true. And of course, there's loads of people flocking to see Confess Fletch.
Oh
So
yeah, I mean,
yeah, and
gotta beat them back. So.
Clerks 3. People are really racing to go see both of those.
Might go see
both
Top Gun Maverick again.
both movies I love, by the way, but ain't nobody paying to see them other than like diehards of Fletch, and if there are any left, and diehards of Clerks 3, of which there are plenty of guys left for that, but that's all it is.
Unfortunately, I mean,
That's all it is. You hush your mouth. Anyway, love me some Clerks. Anyway, Karen, this has been fantastic talking. Don't worry, darling, with you. Like I said, there's no other person I want to talk to about it. And thank you. Thanks for coming on. You got anything coming up that I need to know about?
I'll be heading to the Middleburg Film Festival next month.
What? Where's that at?
It is in Middleburg, Virginia. I think
Virginia.
it's in
Ooh,
Virginia. I hope that's where it's at, because that's where I've
cool.
been telling everyone.
Wow, it's in Virginia. I live in
Yeah,
Virginia.
you should come.
You know what? I'm gonna look it up and see if they got any room for press. I'll see if I can.
Yeah, I know someone. I might be able to hook you up.
Sweet. I'll look forward to that. We will be the poorest people in that old town.
That is a fact.
This is true. It is truth. We are the poorest people there every year. The film critics come traipsing through there, and it's like, oh, Riff Raff is here for 4 days.
Mhm. It's true.
That's all right, though. Karen, this has been great. Thanks again. Thank you, everybody. This has been Cinema Royale. I am Travis Hobson of punchdrunkcritics.com. You can find me there every single day. And we'll be back again probably in a few days with another quick review. Thanks again. Bye. Thanks for checking out the show. If you like what we're laying down, please subscribe to our channel and click the bell to receive notifications for all of our latest stuff.